Baela and Rhaenyra Targaryen are two of the most overlooked characters in House of the Dragon. Most fans barely talk about them. The show treats them like background dragon riders, and nobody seems to realize how important these two girls actually are. Part of the problem is how the show presents them. By casting Baela and Rhaenyra as visibly biracial, the show accidentally made audiences see them as Velaryons first and Targaryens second. But that's backwards. These girls are Targaryens with Velaryon blood, not the other way around. And here's the part that's going to shock you. Baela and Rhaenyra have more Targaryen blood than anyone else in the main cast. More than Rhaenyra, more than Aegon, more than Aemond, more than Helaena. Almost 3/4 pure Valyrian, while everyone fighting for the throne is only half. But this isn't just about blood. These two girls are brave when nobody asks them to be, loyal to each other in a family that destroys itself, strong enough to claim dragons when they're barely old enough to ride them. And when the war ends and almost every other Targaryen is dead, Baela and Rhaenyra are the ones still standing. The entire future of House Targaryen runs through them. That's not a side character. That's the foundation of everything that comes after. So today we're going to give these two the credit they actually deserve. We're going to look at where they come from, how brave they really are, the loyalty they show each other, the strength they prove again and again, and the role they play in saving the future of this family. Let's get into it. Let's start with where Baela and Rhaenyra actually come from, because once you understand their origin, everything else starts to make sense. Their parents are Daemon Targaryen and Laena Velaryon. Now Daemon you already know, he's full Targaryen. Brother to the king, rider of Caraxes, about as pure-blooded as a dragonlord can get. But Laena is where the story gets interesting. Laena was the daughter of Corlys Velaryon and Princess Rhaenys Targaryen, the woman the lords of Westeros refused to crown queen at the Great Council of 101, which means Laena herself was already half Targaryen and half Velaryon. So when she married Daemon and had these two girls, the result was a bloodline that's almost completely Valyrian top to bottom. Let's actually do the math, because the result is wild. Baela and Rhaenyra are half Targaryen from Daemon, another quarter Targaryen from their grandmother Rhaenys, and a quarter Velaryon from their grandfather Corlys. That puts them at 3/4 Targaryen and 1/4 Velaryon. Compare that to everyone else. Rhaenyra is half Targaryen, half Arryn. Aegon, Aemond, Helaena, half Targaryen, half Hightower. Rhaenyra's first 3 sons, even less than half. So the two girls everyone treats like supporting cast are literally the most Targaryen people in the entire main cast. Nobody else even comes close. And there's something else worth pointing out. Their grandmother Rhaenys was supposed to be queen. She had the better claim, she was older, she was a dragon rider, and the only reason she didn't get the throne was because the lords of Westeros didn't want a woman ruling them. So Baela and Rhaenyra are descended from the royal line that got stolen. The line that should have been on the Iron Throne the whole time. There's a kind of poetry too that nobody talks about. Now here's the sad part of their origin. Their mother Laena dies when they're still little. She dies in childbirth, basically choosing to be burned by her own dragon Vhagar rather than die in bed. After that, the girls are raised partly in Pentos and partly bouncing between Dragonstone and King's Landing as Daemon tries to figure out his next move. They lose their mother early, they grow up in instability, and they still come out of it strong, loyal, and brave. That alone tells you something about who they are. Their origin isn't easy, but it gives them everything they need. Now let's talk about their courage. Because honestly, when you actually count the brave things Baela and Rhaenyra do in this story, you start to wonder why anyone calls them side characters at all. Let's start with Baela. Baela is the kind of girl who runs toward problems instead of away from them. While other Targaryens her age are sitting in council chambers or sulking in their rooms, Baela is the one who decides to take her dragon up to face Aegon II himself. Think about that for a second. Aegon II is a grown man, a king, riding Sunfire, one of the most beautiful and dangerous dragons in the world. And Baela, barely an adult, decides she's the one who's going to stop him. She doesn't ask for help. She doesn't wait for orders. She gets on Moondancer and she goes. And she actually does it. She brings Aegon II down. Moondancer dies in the fight and Baela almost dies with her, but the King of the Greens is grounded forever after that battle. That is one of the most consequential moments of the entire war, and it's done by a teenage girl on a dragon barely big enough to fight. Now Rhaenyra's courage is different. Rhaenyra's bravery is the quiet kind. The kind nobody talks about because it doesn't involve explosions. Rhaenyra watches her cousin Aemond claim Vhagar, her mother's dragon, the biggest dragon in the world, the one that should have been hers by right. And she doesn't break. She doesn't give up on being a dragon rider. She keeps trying. She spends years carrying dragon eggs, hoping one will hatch for her, refusing to accept that her place in the family is smaller than anyone else's. That takes a different kind of bravery, the kind where you keep showing up even when the world keeps telling you no, the kind where you refuse to define yourself by what you've lost. And both of these girls are doing this while they're teenagers. Compare that to other characters their age in the show. Aegon II, at the same age, is drunk in a brothel. Aemond is brooding and sharpening his obsession with Vhagar. Even Jace and Luke, who try their best, crack under the pressure of the political moves their mother is making. Baela and Rhaenyra don't crack. They get handed adult problems before they're ready, and they handle them. That's not background character behavior. That's the behavior of people who should be at the center of the story. Now, I want to talk about something I think is the most underrated thing in the entire show, the loyalty between Baela and Rhaenyra. Because look at every other Targaryen sibling relationship in this story. Every single one is a disaster. Viserys and Daemon spend most of their lives in conflict. Rhaenyra and her half-brothers literally go to war and kill each other. Aegon and Aemond. Aemond is plotting to take the crown for himself while Aegon is recovering from being burned alive. Aegon and Helaena. She's broken and barely speaks to him by the end. It's the running tragedy of the entire show. Targaryens love each other and destroy each other in the same breath. Baela and Rhaenyra are the exception, and they're the only exception. These two are completely different people. Baela is fire. She wants to fight, she wants to ride, she wants to be in the middle of things. Rhaenyra is calmer, more thoughtful, more patient. They could easily resent each other. Baela has a dragon, Rhaenyra doesn't. Baela is going to marry the next king, Rhaenyra is going to marry a lesser noble. There are 100 reasons these two could turn on each other. They never do, not once. They support each other through every loss. They protect each other through every political mess their family drags them into. When Rhaenyra loses Vhagar, Baela doesn't gloat or pull rank. When Baela goes off to fight, Rhaenyra doesn't sulk because she's left behind. They genuinely love each other, and they show it in the quiet, consistent ways that real loyalty actually looks like. And here is the part that should hit you. In a family that is genetically incapable of getting along, these two twin sisters are proof that a Targaryen can love another Targaryen without it ending in betrayal. They are the version of this family that the show keeps telling us is impossible, and they're standing right there the whole time. If you want to know what House Targaryen could have been, what it should have been, you look at Baela and Rhaenyra. Their loyalty to each other is the answer to every question this show keeps asking about whether this family is doomed. Now let's talk about their strength. Not just their bravery in a single moment, but their strength as people. The way they carry themselves through everything this story throws at them. Baela's strength is obvious. She's a warrior. She bonds with Moondancer when Moondancer is practically a hatchling and raises that dragon herself. She trains, she fights. By the time she's old enough to go to war, she and Moondancer move like one creature. That doesn't happen by accident. That happens because Baela puts in the work for years, when nobody is watching, when nobody is telling her she has to. Rhaenyra's strength is harder to see, but in some ways it's more impressive, because Rhaenyra has every reason to be bitter. She lost her mother young. She lost her mother's dragon to the cousin who would later become one of the war's biggest threats. She's the twin without a dragon, always standing next to the sister who has one. And she never lets any of that turn her into something small. She keeps trying. She keeps believing she belongs in this family. And eventually, in the source material, she gets her reward. She bonds with Mourning, a dragon she literally watches hatch from an egg. That's not luck. That's the universe finally acknowledging what Rhaenyra always knew about herself, that she was a dragon rider waiting for her dragon. And both girls handle grief in a way that nobody else in this show manages. They lose their mother, they lose dragons, they lose cousins, uncles, siblings, parents. Almost every Targaryen they grow up around dies before the war is over, and they keep going. They don't shut down like Helaena, they don't spiral like Aegon, they don't poison themselves with rage like Aemond. They keep moving forward, keep showing up, keep doing what needs to be done. That's not just bravery in a single battle. That's the kind of strength that builds dynasties. And now we get to the part that almost nobody talks about. The part that, once you understand it, changes how you see this entire show. Baela and Rhaenyra are the future of House Targaryen. I mean that literally. Look at who dies in the Dance of Dragons. Rhaenyra, eaten by a dragon. Aegon II, poisoned. Aemond, killed in the sky over Harrenhal. Daemon, gone in that same battle. Helaena, gone before the war even ends. Jace, Luke, Joffrey, all dead. Almost every named Targaryen of the main generation is wiped out. The dragons are nearly extinct. The Iron Throne is sitting on a pile of ashes and bodies. And standing in the middle of all that destruction, Baela and Rhaenyra. They survive, both of them. They live through a war that consumed almost everyone they ever loved, and after the war ends, they become the bridge between the old Targaryen world and the new one. Baela marries Aegon III, the next king. She becomes queen. Her children carry the bloodline forward. The boy who sits on the Iron Throne after the dance is rebuilding the dynasty with Baela at his side. Rhaena marries Corwyn Corbray and later remarries into more nobility. Her bloodline spreads out through the great houses of Westeros, mixing Targaryen blood into the wider noble system in a way that strengthens the family for generations. Without these two women, the Targaryen dynasty functionally ends with the dance. Yes, Aegon III is technically the king after the war, but he's a broken child. He doesn't want the throne. He doesn't trust dragons. He barely speaks for years. If Baela isn't standing next to him, supporting him, keeping the dynasty stable while he heals, there is no Targaryen future. The dynasty doesn't recover. So when you watch this show and you see Baela and Rhaena standing in the background of a scene looking like supporting characters, just remember, Rhaenyra dies. Daemon dies. Aegon dies. Aemon dies. And these two girls are the ones who actually inherit what's left. They are not background characters in this story. They are the survivors. They are the foundation. They are the reason House Targaryen continues at all. So let me bring all of this together. Baela and Rhaena have the bloodline. 3/4 Targaryen, more than anyone else in the main cast. They have the courage. Baela bringing down a king. Rhaena refusing to give up on her dragon rider birthright. They have the loyalty, the only functional sibling relationship in a family that destroys itself. They have the strength, Baela the warrior, Rhaena the survivor, both of them carrying grief that would break most people. And they have the legacy. The entire future of the dynasty literally passes through them after everyone else has burned. Origin, courage, loyalty, strength, legacy. Those 5 things are what a Targaryen is supposed to be. And the show gave all 5 of them to 2 girls it then treated like they barely mattered. The Dragon Twins aren't background characters. They aren't side players in someone else's war. They are the answer to what House Targaryen could have been if it had just learned to love itself. They are the proof that this family is not cursed. It's just broken. And the broken pieces always pointed toward these 2 girls. The show may not have given them the spotlight they deserve, but the story did, the legacy did, the dragons did. Baela and Rhaena Targaryen are the most Targaryen people in House of the Dragon. The rest of the cast just hasn't caught up yet.